That is that howling shriek of this ugly, ugly being. And I love it. Hi everyone, I'm Carly of Gnarly Carly Gaming, and today I'm doing my 4th video in my highly emotional top 10 series. Today I am talking about Dwellings of Eldervale. So I'm going to start this video answering a question that I've gotten for each of the emotional top 10 videos I've done thus far, and that's, are you really that deeply emotionally attached to all of your games? And the short answer is no, but my top 10, pretty much yes. I think to have played the breadth of games that I have played and to be able to say these 10 mean the most to me, or that I love them the most, there's got to be a story in that. There's got to be an experience, at least an emotional experience, of play and wonder and joy and exploration through them. And because I mostly play with other people or find games with other people, that's usually connected to me, to the people in my life that mean a lot to me. And even more than that, a lot of them I've acquired through the people in my life. I have bought some of my games, but a lot of the games have been games that I've fallen in love with, and then someone special was like, hey, I know you care about this, and here you are. And so yeah, I'm a highly emotional person in general. I've been described as a faucet of a woman. Once I'm turned on in terms of tears, it's really hard to get me to stop. But I am just deeply attached to board games at large, and especially these ones. These just mean the world to me. So with that, before I jump into the gameplay of Dwellings of Eldervale, I want to talk about how it's rooted in me and my story and my world. So this is actually a story that begins on Facebook. One of my high school friends, Shiloh, he had done a Facebook poll. I think he did it on Instagram too, but I saw it on Facebook. And it just asked how people were doing with poll answers of, I'm doing all right, or I could use some support. Now, he's a big advocate for suicide awareness and mental health, and was genuinely reaching out to people and responding to those people, including myself, who said they could use a little support that day. Whether small or in big ways, he just wanted to show up for the folks in his life and give them an outlet and a human to talk to. And with that, on another day, kind of inspired by Shiloh's kindness towards me, I thought I would do the same on Instagram. We talk about board games a lot on my Instagram platform, but I figured I would just throw in my story the same kind of poll. How are you doing today? With I'm all right, and I could use a little support. And so many people clicked that they could use support, but I really made it my goal to respond to every single one that day, and I did. And some conversations were really short and small, and some conversations were a lot bigger, partially because some people needed more support, and partially because some people I just got on with. I'm a social person. I came on Instagram to look for friends, and we talked about board games, life, and it was just some really genuine moments of connection that I found through social media. And it was through one of those conversations that day that I first started talking to my friend Doug that I met through Instagram. We talked about board games, life, and everything, and we just grew to be very close friends. And because he doesn't live super far away from me, I actually made it down to see him and hang with friends and have a game day there. And the first game we ever played together was his newly acquired game from Kickstarter, Dwellings of Eldervale. I had seen it on Instagram, everyone was posting their gorgeous giant boxes of the game, and I desperately, desperately wanted to play, so Doug made sure it would hit the table when I was in town, and I learned it ahead of time, everyone did, and we sat down to play right away when I got there. And I loved it. I loved it so, so much. And now I have my own copy. And the reason I have my own copy is because of Doug's generosity towards me. He saw how much I loved it that day and how much I was pining for the very expensive Dwellings of Eldervale, and he sent me a copy. Not immediately, but later. And now it is not only the first game we've played together, but one of my favorite games in my collection. In part because of the emotional reasons, but also because it is freaking fantastical and amazing. If you've seen my video for A Feast for Odin, you know how much I love worker placement games. By that, I mean you have a lot of worker dudes and you allocate them to do different things, and that is what that mechanism does. This behemoth is worker placement on an epic magical scale. In the game, players take on the roles of different factions that are exploring Eldervale, adventuring throughout, fighting each other and monsters in epic battles, trying to master the elements, and ultimately dwell in Eldervale. And at the end of the game, whichever player has the most elemental dominance is crowned the winner. That's the total gist of the game that you can find on Board Game Geek without watching this. I'm going to show you now why I fell in love with it. Okay, that's the big one. When playing Dwellings of Eldervale, you start with some known lands, a board generalized setup that you can deploy workers to explore, gain treasure, adventure, and build both elemental strength, as well as start to dwell in Eldervale by planting houses down, further increasing your elemental power depending on the region that you dwell. Some, for instance, are air-specific regions which would help you increase in the element of air. And the first thing I really love about this game is you're already pushed into an elemental direction when you choose your starting faction. Each of the element has two possible factions, both with variable abilities, that not only give you a kind of home faction to start, so maybe I start with a little bit of dark elemental knowledge, though I can build in different elements throughout the game, but also just pushes you in different directions of gameplay. Some people have really strong warriors, some people have base workers, some people can deploy a very magical dragon that does a lot of cool things. And so while everybody has the same access to build all of these unique figures in the game, a dragon, base workers, warriors, and even a wizard, everybody's experiencing those figures a little different. There's so much variety in gameplay, and it's all highly magical and fantastic and thematic. For instance, my favorite faction, because I am a proud rat mom, is Rattlings of the Swarm, and they have an ability called Swarm, which lets you gain extra swords for each of your workers that join a battle. So you can kind of swarm in and get really buff and strong. Swords also help with battling. That juxtaposes the ogres, for instance, who their base workers actually, instead of rolling one die, which is part of a battle mechanic, get to roll two because they're extra strong and ogre-y. But everyone's faction will kind of send them in a different direction, having them make different creatures. But it's really cool at the base level that each of these workers kind of have a different play feel, that it's a fantastical adventure, and you have this faction that includes all of these divergent kind of beings. But on top of that, you have a type of faction. You can be a dark elemental queen, or you can be an ogre and crush people. And while all of that is well and good, I think I would hate the game if it had all of these divergent things and not an easy way to store them. And actually, the game comes with these little board trays that you can take it off the lid, and this is everything that element needs to start the game. It has all your different types of workers you deploy. It tells you the cost of deploying them. This is where you store all of your resources acquired during the game. And so everything is good to go here. It is just fantastically easy to get started and set up in these games. People get to like look through each of the factions I have. So you can see there's Earth. They're all color-coded and nice, but I can basically pass them the faction boards, let them choose what thematically is cool to them, and roll from there fairly easily. And in the tray, the really stinking cool and simple tray, you also find one of the other things I think is the most charming about the game. Now, my goal in this video is to talk about why I love this game, why I think it's charming and cool and endearing and holds a place in my top 10. So I'm not going to flesh out all the mechanics of the different actions you can do during the game, but the big thing in this game is dwelling in Eldervale. When you find a place, an elemental region, if you will, when you dwell there, you gain the elemental strength of that region. One, this is really cool because you adventure out and you claim things as your own. Other people can go there and fight people there and get treasure there, but it's your region. And you'll get points later for having that region based on your elemental strength in the element that it is. But first, you have to build a home there. And this is by far one of the things I think is the most clever about this game. You have your workers here in this tray, and these are your base workers, and they go out and they can explore for you, they can fight for you just alongside your warriors, anything else. But you also have these little roofs, and the roof fits perfectly atop the worker. Because to pay for the dwelling, you have to consume a worker. And this game, instead of reminding you by making you throw the worker back to the box or do something else, it all stays with you throughout the other game. You literally just cap it and it stays right there on the tile. And I just love that. The first game I played, I had no idea what I was doing because there's a bunch of different directions you could go. But seeing that worker and that roof that I could put on it, that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to put roofs on my people, exhaust them, I don't care. It was so dang satisfying and fun. And it feels like a really cool culmination of you building towards dwelling and growing in strength, is to just be able to literally build your little dwelling with your worker. It was just so dang cool. Was and is. And the fact that something is so tactilely satisfying as a core mechanic of a game is just so unique and wonderful. They took worker placement, which I already love, and they brought it to life with the different types of workers, the dragons, I love the dragons, and also just using those workers truly to ground the game. I just think it's brilliant. And the other thing I love most in this game is the monsters. There's actually 2 trays, just like the factions you have a choice. There's actually 2 monsters that correlate to each of the elements. This, for instance, is one of the light monsters. They are awesome and wonderful. They're another way that you can gain elemental strength. If you battle, for instance, this air boy and succeed, you can either go up in a glory track, which will get you a lot of different bonuses, or else you can gain elemental strength based on that monster type that you defeated. You kind of bring in their elemental power into yourself. Now, battling monsters in this game adds a layer of difficulty. A lot of them will stop you from getting where you want to be and dwelling where you want to dwell because you have to contend with them being there. And while sometimes you might want their elemental power for yourself, sometimes they have special abilities that make them very annoying to deal with. And this difficulty just increases the enjoyability of the game for me. I love that an air monster can suck me in and make it really difficult for me to exist around it. I like that chaotic ones can cause trouble. I really just enjoy them. And what also makes them really cool in this game, particularly in the Legendary Edition, is they make sound. So they come with these little bases for the monsters that you can sub out depending on who you're playing with, and that is that howling shriek of this ugly, ugly being. And I love it. So you're just marching them across the board like... And it's really cool. Granted, they don't exist on the board the entire time, and the Legendary Edition isn't a necessary one, but playing with them for the first time and having them howl around is just, I don't know, it just adds a layer of fantasy and wonder and excitement to an already great game at its core. I find them lovely. I think they're a lot of fun, and the best part of it isn't anything I've already said. The best part of it is that you can make them your pet. There's a mechanic in the game whereby instead of defeating the monster and either gaining glory for battle or else elemental power, you can dominate it if you have a card that allows you to do so. It's basically like a spell in which you can kind of captivate the monster and make it your own instead. And they become your pet and fight for you. They lose some of their special abilities to completely screw with other people, so they're not completely overpowered, but their strength you can use for yourself. As soon as they're defeated, though, you lose them forever, rather than other workers and things that you can get back from the underworld. But all I wanted to do was make them my pet. I mean, that shrieking little chaos beast as my toy? Yeah. And so I spent my whole game just trying to dominate as I could. I usually can only do 1 a game, and though it isn't on my first play anymore, I still almost always, to the detriment of my own game, will go out of my way to try to make something my pet, and everyone else I will play with will go out of their way to try to kill my pet at the first possible moment after it is my pet. But I think that's just, I don't know, it's just so well thought out and delightful, and just like a, I don't know, it feels like a side quest to me, something that I can accomplish that can actually serve me and give me direction throughout a game. I think this game just holistically is an adventure that just feels so well thought out. And you guys are also probably wondering how long it plays. It's about 30 minutes per player, so it actually isn't too bad. It plays up to 5. I think it's best at like the 3 or 4 range. But I don't know. It's splendor. It's wonderful. I'm just so smitten with this game. I think it takes that adventure-y feel of a role-play adventure game and squishes it into something that is way more of a worker placement Euro vibe. And I love those feelings coming together. I love feeling the adventure and the fantasy in something that isn't rooted in story. The story kind of comes through me. I have my own little journey with it each and every time. And I love it. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of what makes this game special to me is what happens when all your workers are on the board. Typically, in a lot of worker placement games, when all of your people are on the board, you have to spend an entire action to bring them back. And in this game, that is true, but it's a whole lot more satisfying than most. The reason for that is a lot of times in other games, you just bring them back and it feels like a wasted turn. It feels like the least efficient thing you could do. You're itching for that next turn already, where you can actually get something and do something and be a part of the adventure. In this game, that's not quite the case. You have cards, which I can actually showcase here. Your little adventure cards that you'll collect throughout the game. So this is a tray holding them, but there's some for each of the elements. It's another way you can gain elemental strength is by acquiring these, but they also give you actions for your workers to do when they come home. Everyone starts with some base actions, including summoning another worker, things like that, but these will give you further actions you can do with either any of your workers or sometimes specialty workers, depending on which ones you have built. And you claim these cards and they can get you different items, and so by the end of the game, sometimes your most powerful action is bringing everyone home and being able to do 12 things in a given turn. It's pretty quick, it's actually not 12, but it feels like that because you're kind of building up to be like, yes, I'm bringing everyone back, I get to do all these things, and then I can come back full force. And I think that is one of the most elegant things about this worker placement game is they really know it's fun. They know that monsters are fun. They know that no one likes to bring things back and not have that downturn that they hate. I think they really just took that basic worker placement game and gave it such incredible life and enjoyability, and I would play it all the time if people would play it with me all the time. I think it's just very fantastically fun. And yeah, it's magical, it's brilliant, and I love it. And I'm so, so grateful to have my own copy now, and that Doug came into my world and taught it to me and gave it to me, and I'm just so attached to this dang game. And my attachment shows, as it is one of the most upgraded games I have by far, in addition to the Etsy covers so that the faction boards don't get hurt for these player boards. I also have upgraded resources. There's treasure tokens that are normally cardboard. I have wooden ones. I have these beautiful metal dragon coins. And I have all the Meeple Source tokens that are just gorgeous upgrades. I'll just showcase them here. And I have really turned this into just something special to behold on a table. The player mat I also have, and it just brings everything to life as you explore an adventure in the middle of the board. I love this game. It is enchanting. It is wonderful. It hits my worker placement loving heart, and it's an easy addition to the top 10. So that wraps up my highly emotional video on Dwellings of Eldervale and why it is so significant to me, as well as just a magnificent game. I hope you'll consider liking the video and subscribing. It's a very small and easy way that you can support me in quite a big way. And other than that, I will see you all for the next one. Bye.